I feel like I do too.
Man. All right. Joe, what's up?
Doing well. How are you doing, Marcus?
I'm
What
doing good. It's
what what
it's
what episode are we on right now? Episode 6, right?
episode 6006, as the cool people like to do with their podcast
Yeah.
um and their shows. But let's see. I want to make sure that we've hit live on LinkedIn, and we are. Um but yeah, this is episode 006. We have continued on telling the story from the evolution of engagement, and from closing out our wrap of the year in 2023. Which, you know what, I'm low key excited about 2024, like how we closed the year out. But I'm looking far ahead. But we've been dropping our episodes, recapping what's going on from an experiential lens, from a brand partnership space, events we're going to, and um, that's what this is about. That's what we continue to, forecast what we think will show up in the spaces that we are a part of.
Mhm.
Then also sharing that information back with the community and the people that love experiential.
100%. It has been it's been an interesting month. I mean, when we talked last time, it was recapping everything South by, and now it's already been over a month since then, and it gets pretty crazy when you think about the next thing and the next thing and each rendition of new events. So I'm going to be really intrigued what we're going to recap here on it, but I also can't wait to hear about your question of the day. I know we usually and
You have to have a question of the day. It's super important. Sometimes it it could be about marketing, or it could be about anything. And I think that that's just it's a beautiful Friday. So it's always great to ask questions and things like that. So,
I know I have one, so we'll exchange
ooh, okay.
them.
All right, Joe.
I did want to say, my most recent one I went to was the Possible conference
Mhm.
in Miami, and that was interesting. I mean, that was their second iteration of the event. Last year in 2023 was the first one. I did not go, but I went last week, and it was pretty interesting to see. It takes over the Fontainebleau in Miami. It's a very like it's almost like a mini Cannes festival of creativity. If I'm being quite honest, it's showing up there. You're kind of in that like more of like that paradise kind of setting, just like how the South of France is, and there's touch points to engage with different brands. Canva shows up, Google shows up, and it was kind of cool. Like the little parts of personalization. I'm noticing more and more brands doing personalized experiences, uh,
Yeah.
or swag giveaways, like Canva, providing a hat that you can give away and customize to a popsicle that can be like in a whole different kind of
Yeah.
custom popsicle of yours and whatnot. So I'm noticing more and more brands kind of sinking deeper into that little personalization aspect of things.
So you went to the conference. It was in Miami. I was taking a look at it when you told me about it. It definitely falls in the marketing space. Different brands are there. Some of the marketing organizations are there. Were there any of the sessions that stood out to you? Anything that popped out that you want to share?
Unfortunately, did not make it to sessions. Actually, we no, honestly only had really an expo pass, so you only got
Okay.
to see the expo hall and then
Okay.
be outside and kind of see like what some of these brands were showing up. Like Yahoo had a little like kind of like this second deck to have like kind of a mini little experience party thing where obviously clients can engage. It was very again very Cannes festival. It was having your media, your agency folks, along with your brand folks, and coming together and obviously talking about probably opportunities and building relationships and whatnot. From a session standpoint, I will say everything that I was following on LinkedIn or anything else, most people that were in sessions or speakers at sessions were certainly talking about what the whole essence of possible is. And that
Mhm.
is what's possible, what's possible in marketing, what's coming up next. It's just another one of those events.
Yeah.
I will say it's funny. I had a couple good conversations with some folks over at Snapchat and others, and we were talking about how it's hard to identify what events are the right ones to even go to these days. There's there's an oversaturation of different events all over the place. How do you split up time and where do you go to make sure you're having the highest return on investment of actually showing up?
Yeah.
I mean, EMS is happening this week, an amazing event for all experiential folks, agency and brand. But let's say you were just at Possible last week. How could you possibly, you're doing both, it can
Yeah,
get
you are.
a lot,
Yeah. I mean, like you think about it like the conference and event space, like you're always on the move. Like, and it's hard to I always have these conversations that are about like how do you build an experience and make sure that you make it in a way that like, if you want to pick it up and go somewhere else, like you've built it in a way that it can be picked up and dropped at any moment. Which that may lead to my question of the day. I think I have it. I'll share it with you in a little bit, but and it's around. It's truly going to be around builds and thinking about things like that. But so would you go to Possible again next year?
That's a good question. Wow, I would normally say yes right away, but I feel as if there's so many events, Marcus. There's so many events to try. You have the experiential summit, you have the Biz Bash leadership and sports summits, you have the New Fronts is next week. I'm going to the New Fronts, right? And to me, when you think about that, back to back to back, you have Possible, EMS, and then New Fronts. If you were to try to go to all of them, I mean, your brain would explode of like, how do you perfect yourself on showing up at each thing? But it is also important to realize which ones hold the most value for you. If you're showing up as an agency, of course, I would probably want to pick the New Fronts and the experiential summit as an agency. If you're a brand, you probably want to show up at Possible and the New Fronts. It's definitely a big thing to be a part of. So it's a pick and choose. Ultimately, to answer that question, I don't know. I don't know if I would go back next year, but I did like it, and I think
that's all that matters.
I think it's important that you choose a city that actually brings people in. And Miami obviously has been exploding with that cultural movement with the Art Basel and the Possible and just all different things. The only piece that I would love to have seen is more of an integration into like the city itself. So the event was held at the hotel, but you know how like Cannes has a whole Cannes takeover, it's all over. I would love to see like the Possible conference start to like kind of take over different pockets of like the city of Miami.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's one to close it out. Again, that's a conference. Possible was a conference hosted in Miami. And so those who be on the lookout for maybe in 2025, those who want to attend. But first, shout out to everybody joining us today. Evolution of Engagement, episode 6. We're going to talk through Coachella. We're going to talk through things with the WNBA opening up with the draft. What else did we there's a lot that has happened. WNBA, the NBA playoffs are off to a great start. Some brand partnerships have released around a lot of the athletes. There's a lot happening, so we're going to be dropping that. But again, this show is really focused on bringing everybody that really touches experiential at all angles, from your brand ambassador companies to your fabrication build companies to data around here, as well as sponsorship, the brand side, as well as the agencies that all lead inside of making these experiences for consumers to continue to be in touch with brands. So again, if you see someone at the show or watching the show, don't hesitate to reach out, as well as to myself and Joe. We are super involved in the community, different organizations that we support. NFL draft is this weekend. That's another thing. Like, it is a lot going on, but in our space. So again, thank you all for joining us today. It's Friday. It's early. Shout out to the East Coast people. West Coast,
I'd be shocked if the West Coast folks are chiming in. I appreciate it if you know what.
West Coast people, we apologize. We had to shift it around, but we know that experiential goes across the U.S. and across the globe. So thank you for everybody joining us today.
I did want to touch on the Coachella.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been having some conversations recently of, how you have to stay top of mind, and I look at how we did our LinkedIn Live, our episode 5 right after South by, and
Mhm.
this kind of happening literally right after I think weekend 2 of Coachella. The brands that showed up, I mean, it wasn't as entertainment heavy, at least from what I found through my own like research. I know Biz Bash did a wonderful recap. Same thing with Event Marketer, and I know other forums and editorial companies did as well. But I noticed the entertainment brands didn't show up as much, but some of these other ones had a higher impact and higher presence. So, for instance, I saw how Campari Group showed up with their Aperol, spritz brand, and it was just really aesthetically pleasing. Just from like the color palette and like the little vignettes of experiences and whatnot. And I thought that was pretty cool, just to kind of see how they're showing up, because I've seen them at music festivals, geez, for the last 5 to 6 years now. Coachella, Governor's Ball, Electric Zoo, I think it was, and they show up, and they show up in a really kind of unique footprint. Um,
Yeah.
another one that I know tends to be showing up in different capacities is YouTube. Seeing them at VidCon a couple years back, and then seeing in the recap that BizBash did, how they had this whole like '90s theme nostalgia evoking experience at Coachella, which I thought was funny because it's the correct demographic. You're looking at the people that are obviously attending Coachella, and there's, you could argue people are going there that are more so influencers nowadays, but it's still in that people who were born in the '90s or grew up in the '90s, and they want that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I also didn't make it to Coachella this year. It is on my list to be there. It's one, the experience music wise. I love festivals and things of that nature. I also, truthfully, this is everybody that kind of works in the industry, you get a little spoiled. Okay. So there's things that you just kind of, I want, I want some extra attention when I go to these festivals. I want to have a higher ticket, I would say. If you know what I'm putting up, you know what I'm putting down here. But I was looking at one brand, well, two brands that always stand out to me, and I've been watching for a little bit. One, we know American Express will consistently show up there. That is one of their staples in their calendar throughout the year, is definitely to show up at Coachella. So I was able to look at some of the things they did there, and I'm super impressed. They continue to push the envelope as we think about card member experiences. One, being still open, but also knowing that there's this level of like um, this gate. I'm calling it gatekeeping, but they know that people want to experience their brand,
Right.
but still letting people that don't have American Express cards be around. But at the same time, if you want to go to that next level, you do have to have
It is
American.
a very premium experience. From what
Oh,
I noticed, it's always, at Art Basel, you could see it all around the beach, and like how you're thinking, wow, they built this whole experience, and it's so intricate and it's so wonderful and all this stuff, and yet you can't go in there unless you have a specific card. uh,
mhm.
and kind of same thing at Coachella. They always show up in different ways. By the way, I think more and more of these card card companies, credit card companies, and any banks are actually starting to show up like that.
Yeah,
Dance Film Festival, uh, look at Chase Sapphire showed up, and it was very exclusive. You're gonna start seeing that. I'm sure Visa has different ways of doing that with like the Olympics and different aspects of their activations.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we have the Olympics coming up in Paris in 20 this year, actually. So you're right. I mean, Visa, they are one of the presenting sponsors, I think. So that will be interesting to see how they kind of approach the Olympics this year.
Yeah, so that's kind of another aspect of what kind of brands are showing up at festivals or those type of consumer facing events. So again, Coachella, it's interesting. I don't want to ever hate on a festival, especially when there's a lot of experiential involved. But you kind of notice that Coachella has become more of like that influencer marketing
Mm-hmm.
haven, and it's kind of fascinating to see how what brands are showing up in that capacity for that demographic. There's a lot of art though that shows up at Coachella, and I really love that the art scene in
Okay.
terms of like different artists who create these big sculptures or different installations. They show up every year, and it's always really cool to see that too.
Okay. Yeah, you know who else is doing really good? Is Pinterest.
I,
Now, and like I mean, we saw them at Cannes this past year, and then the year I went, there was different event. Like you had to sign up. They create this like FOMO kind of inducing experience where like I got to go sign up because they're doing tattoos or they're doing like Air Force customization. And so I think one of their experience, and they've kind of been running this experience and tweaking it a little bit. It's all around like kind of manifestation, which that's what Pinterest is. If we think about kind of their app philosophy in a way, like I don't know if that's the correct term that they use internally, but like what they feel like consumers do with their app.
it's kind of their ethos. It's kind of the ethos of what Pinterest is.
Yeah. So
Is creativity and then manifesting that creativity from inspiration.
yeah.
That's the essence.
Yeah, and I think I threw a question up here just to kind of continue this conversation, but this is to the comments, like which brand stands out to you for premium event experiences? Are there some brands that we haven't mentioned that you feel like have great premium experiences? Give them a shout out. You never know. But yeah, Pinterest, I'm putting it in the air that we can get their experiential leads on our next episode. If they're watching, come on, I sent you some messages.
I do want to speak with Judy more. She really and her whole team, by the way. There's a couple others, Ariel and another woman, Stacy out in Europe, but all three of them that I've just followed on LinkedIn for some time and know they really are showing up in very various ways. And let me say, I'm going to give Pinterest and Delta Airlines that credit right now because it's just really incredible to see what they're showing up and doing.
Mm-hmm.
Airlines showed up at Coachella and they showed up at South by Southwest. Amazing experiences in its own right because it was very much geared toward their Sky Miles members and how it was more loungy. Pinterest showing up at these types of events, Coachella showing up with their manifestation, experience where there's all these little vignettes and intricacies of, hey, you have take a step away from the craziness of the festival and come enjoy our experience,
Yeah. It was I mean, and what I love about it, the design is always different, right? Like it's not like at Coachella was more like clouds and it's white and it feels clean, but when you go to Cannes, and I don't know if I saw them at Art Basel, but I was in the weeds of work. But at at Cannes, it's more beachy. It feels like it just blends right into the space. It blends right into the environment, and it doesn't like seem weird that it's there, knowing that it's an app that you're building your world or you're manifesting what you want. And what's crazy is I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was like talking about like designing my apartment, and instead of like talking through it, I was like, oh, here's my Pinterest board. And I just showed my Pinterest board for like my entire apartment. And truly like, all right, I didn't get everything because the furniture I like costs $700 for a little stool. I'm not paying that. We got to find something that looks like that. But it ended up, those are things that I still drew the interest from. And if I could find it, I'm still purchasing. So again, it's that kind of manifesting what you want, but I think they do a really good job of consistently showing up, being a part of the environment, and bringing their brand there versus like just trying to outfit into the space. So,
right.
Yeah.
I love that, Marcus. It's true, and you touch on a good point about how a brand should try to show up at these different events in more of a creative way instead of it just being always modular and like just changing out something very small. Because then you kind of get, then it kind of almost becomes redundant or you're not showcasing that, hey, this event is either A, for a different demographic, or B, um, needs to have a different presence and a different
Yeah.
engagement factor to it. So
Yeah.
it's a good topic.
I think you lean into my question of the day, Joe. I think
Wow.
so. I think so. I'm trying to figure out how to get it out and formulate it correctly. But it is basically really kind of talking about if should when you're building or creating should and knowing that you're going to go to different tentpole moments. Let's say at the top of the year, you're like, all right, we're going to these 5 places. Should you build in a way that is modular and it's like pick up and we're gonna repeat, or should you always tweak the experience to fit, not fit into where you're going, but be seamless into this space? So I don't know how to cut that down and
So,
get that to a
so
nice.
I think I know what you're saying. So Marcus, you're asking if when a brand decides to show up at the different events and planning out their budget for the year of what that's going to look like, do they show up at more events in a very modular way where it's not cookie cutter? I don't ever
Yeah.
want to say that, but very much okay. There's like little pieces that they're tweaking, or do they just go, crazy with these wild, engagements and a whole environmental experience, but only selecting a few different events throughout the year? Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Well, I think it's the first part. It's like if you know you're going to go to 5 places, are you repeating the experience, knowing when you get there may be a small percentage that have seen it before, or do you build
Something completely different for the same.
every single time?
I
But
don't necessarily. I mean, for as someone who has been in the fabrication production space, that's obviously a costly expense to any brand or anyone that's trying to build out this thing.
yeah,
So that's an interesting question, because you could
yeah,
argue I see American Express show up in different ways all the time, so it's
yeah,
vastly different. However, this has been my theory for the last year, and it's kind of coming true lately. More and more brands are creating their own IP, their own experience,
yeah. We talked about
where,
that.
where they can create their own thing, that when they do have people come to it, and it's their own tentpole event, now they are fully in control of the design, the creative, the storytelling, the consumer flow. It's pretty interesting when you kind of go down that route, because to Carter's answer to that question, it is a little bit of both. But when
Yeah,
you create that own individual experience for a brand itself, they have full control over that now. So now it is a little bit of both.
yeah. I think so. I'm gonna try to cut that down just a little bit so we can throw the question up for people. I want to go back to John's response because this was to my question about which brands stand out to you for premium event experiences. And John said a lot of the streaming services, including Amazon Prime and Audible, always show up big at event activations, which is interesting to see fully digital services activate space. Comic-Con coming up, post-writer strike will also be interesting to see which brands invest in heavy and how they activate. We're going to put a pin in that, John, because that is something I want to make sure we come back to, especially after the strike, like how brands show up there. We know that the strike had a big impact on more of the entertainment side of the business, but also a lot of these brands like an Amazon Prime or were affected. Your HBOs were affected. So to see how they come back there, but definitely I agree. I mean, I've seen Audible and Amazon a few times, and definitely think that they show up from a premium experience standpoint.
Yeah.
David, I like what David just said. Plus, sustainability is a huge issue. That is correct. And building custom structures for one use creates a lot of waste. I agree. A lot of brands in experiential spaces and on the agency side take sustainability very serious, and it's a part of their budget plans, as well as making sure that's very well known. Is what are we doing after this? How are these materials being reused? Are they going in storage? Or are we tossing them? And I was my last organization, like it was very, very important that every time we built things, like we knew what pieces how they were built, and then what pieces move on to the next activation. And it's been the same replicated where I am today. It's like, what pieces can we take? What is disposed of properly, but still at the same time, like making sure that we continue to reuse and bring things back. So again, I agree. Like rebuilding things throughout the year is crazy, but I
It
mean, from a fabrication standpoint, you may enjoy that, but it's super stressful to also be looking at all that.
Yeah, you're thinking logistics, production timelines, I&D of all of it. I mean, it becomes a lot, and yeah, sustainability is a huge factor in all of this, and that's
Yeah,
probably why if a brand is looking to minimize that, to the emissions, CO2 emissions, and anything, and be much more conscious. Case in point, I went to an event. I don't think we touched on this last time. I went to an event in Santa Clara at the end of March. And
hmm
it was for ABPM. And it was like all about like the innovation centers and briefing programs and everything. And at the end of the conference, it was a 3-day conference. The third day, you got to choose which headquarters you would like to go to get a tour of a facility.
hmm
Well, I chose Microsoft because it was like a full day at Microsoft, and it was part of one of their innovation centers. And let me tell you, Marcus, I mean, this was the epitome of making up an architecturally like beautifully sound building,
hmm
sustainability to the absolute max,
yeah,
and involving every single piece of what makes this facility work with the city that they're in. They
hmm
only every plant and every single thing, every food that was being deployed to their employees there and everything, or the staff, was all locally sourced within 100 miles of the facility.
wow,
All the plants and everything are obviously grown right there, and then employees can actually like take home, like, let's say, like some type of basil or something like that home,
yeah,
or, like everything was purposeful.
wow,
And the innovation itself, the innovation center itself, was, I think, 643,000 square feet of space, and that's one of 58 they have around the globe. uh,
that's
it,
amazing.
it was one of the most cool, like the cooler experiential things that I'd done that wasn't really geared toward experiential. It was
Yeah,
just every piece of it was multi-sensory, and
hmm hmm
sustainability was huge. It was just impactful in every way. So
yeah. I mean, I love to hear that, and you know what? I'm not a sustainability expert, and I don't know if you are, Joe,
I'm
but
not. No, no.
I think that one episode we need to do is around sustainability in our industry. So I'm going to put a pin in that. But David, if you know somebody, or if that's you that is a sustainability expert, let's chat off to the side, because I think that's something we want to bring to our community, and also just showcasing what's the possibility there, and just kind of inform people. Um, so I love that. I think that
I,
that's a
I'd love to transition to your brand partnership, because I know we're only at 45 minutes today.
yeah, yeah,
I, I,
shorter day.
I'd love to hear your brand partnership updates. I'm Trust me, man, you are my guy who I go to always make sure I'm trying to stay top of mind. And then you'll share like 4 of them in a row, and I'm like, okay.
Well, I wish what I love about brand partnerships is just finding brands, and in the partnership space are finding these kind of places to meet up together, and it makes sense and it feels good. And so I share the ones that I really like, that stick out to me. So first off, NBA playoffs are off to the races, but what's super important that is happening is the basketball shoes and the shoes that the players are wearing, specifically Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is an Adidas athlete and has released his signature shoe. Now, his signature shoe is everywhere. And when I say everywhere, it is everywhere. I actually was at the McDonald's All American game this year, and that was the shoe one of the shoes the kids got. They also got the James Harden pair, and this shoe was fire. Immediately after that, he releases a style he releases like 5 different styles. So in a way, Adidas is starting to push they're starting to push, and they're starting to push really hard in the basketball space, and just athletics in general. and you could see how they are pushing the colorways of the James Harden, um, who else? Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, as well as Anthony Edwards as their newest kind of like face of the game. And they're pushing these colorways hard, and then it's kind of taken over all of the basketball and sneaker kind of like outlets. They just are all posting Adidas sneakers. Like there's some Nikes that are jumping in there, but it ain't the same. Let me tell you right now, it is not the same. But at the same time, like again, you can see that they know that this is a wave. James Harden is doing really good, as well as Anthony Edwards. So like they know that these players, their visibility from a shoe perspective is super important for them. So that's one. The next one is WNBA draft happened. Of course, Caitlin Clark went number one. Angel Reese went number seven, and Camila Cardova went number three, which were some of the biggest names. Also, Paige Hearns. I don't think she went to the draft this year. I could be wrong. I need to look that up. But those three, those names kind of stuck out. Paige, definitely, she's a go-getter. It was at UConn. But Nike signed Caitlin Clark to I think, 18 or $15 million deal or something like that. Let me fact check that real quick, because that's a big thing.
Oh wait, I did see no that, and I think that was your link or something you said you put up on LinkedIn.
28. No, it's 28. I was way off. I took $10 million from her. 28 million over 8 years. So again, truthfully, not gonna lie to you, when the WNBA draft happened, I was watching the draft, probably my first time ever watching the WNBA draft.
Right.
And I'm talking about like watching, like I'm on my phone watching. I also watched the game Iowa versus LSU. Was it LSU? Yeah, I think it's LSU or South Carolina. Sorry, South Carolina. I'm watching it at brunch, like on my phone. And I was like, I'm watching not only to add to I want to make sure the stats, like, hey, I'm here to boost the stats. I want to make sure every device is watching the game because the women's game deserves that, especially the eyes that it receives. Like, but these are true eyes to see the game. And then I text my dad, I said, you need to be watching this game. Like you're about to see this big shift in women's basketball, which had already happened like 2 years ago, but now it's this second kind of wave.
Right.
But back to my thing, or back to what I was saying, like Nike definitely has put a stamp definitely in the women's space. But also not only that, Steph Curry signed a player from South Carolina to his brand, not Under Armour, to his brand. Of course, you've seen players do this before when they signed to Jordan or that's under Nike. LeBron does not have an athlete yet. I don't think that's visible. But Steph Curry is kind of one of the first players that are playing currently right now to have a brand underneath. So those are some updates. Let me check.
I love that, Marcus.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is why I say you are the guy to go to for this stuff, and that's what makes it highly curated when it comes to knowing these brand partnerships that are going on out there. So I appreciate your updates, really, I truly do.
Wait, I got some more.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely there's some rap beef happening with Drake and all these people.
I did see that. That's right.
Besides the rap part, which is fine. I mean, I care, but I don't care that much. But what I found, which was interesting, is that the woman from Kill Bill, I can't remember her name, but she posted about what the rap beef Drake was happening. And it was, Drake posted a picture of like a Kill Bill in the suit. And it's like this scene where all these people are around the character and she's about to like fight them all. And the woman from Kill Bill sent him a message and was like, do you need this suit? And it's like in a case. And it just was like this perfect moment of like this outside person who's not a part of the music industry, like inserting themselves, but in a very authentic way. And I thought that was really interesting. It's like, this is a way that you could just now, if I was the Kill Bill team, I would have kind of made a couple dupes of videos with Drake's face on it just to kind of lean into it a little bit more. But
Have a with them, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's interesting, man. I'm intrigued to hear what you think the next. That kind of goes into my question of the day was where do you see, and that it isn't almost necessarily geared toward experiential, but it's more geared toward where do you see the next big thing happening? Where do you see the next big, whether it's an activation, whether it's a big event, whether it's a big pivotal moment in maybe marketing.
yeah,
Obviously, everyone always wants to talk about artificial intelligence, and that's great. But where do you think the next thing is going to happen? And I mean, for me personally, I'm actually going to C2 Montreal in a few weeks.
mhm.
Head over there. XP Land is having a big thing. They're going to have their XP fronts, it's called, at the C2 Montreal. But C2 Montreal is like a haven of creativity and innovation, and so I'm really intrigued to see what's going to be the next thing. And
Yeah,
that's going to be my questions.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think that there's the AI space we know, and how that's intertwined into experiential as well as marketing in general. Um, but it's hard to say. I think like you look at what's going on across the entire industry and what people are gravitating towards, and it is kind of things that are innovation focused, that are tech heavy. We look at McDonald's that happened in LA, and
Right. That's right.
um, there it was more of this partnership with one of the food service um, reservation companies, but bringing McDonald's to McDonald's and bringing them into the US, like that was this crossover, right? Anime, and somebody just said it, like, did you see Drake anime preview on his Instagram? I think that's the next kind of anime is starting to be a part of seemed into brought into American culture at on a big stage. It's always been there. Like you go back to Dragon Ball Z and all of that, like, but
Oh, true. True.
now you can see it be involved in McDonald's with the McDonald's pop up. Like that was that first kind of mainstream moment that I know of right now. Of course, there are probably others, but a mainstream moment where you've made it digital first. It's like it's a space like the team that worked on that. Like it's a it's a blank space, and then you bring in the things, but it's heavy digital, but also leaning into some fandoms.
Right.
I think that you're going to see the fandom space continue to evolve, and you're going to see worlds, right, like that people can access in real time. Like I think people are starting to want to access their fandoms in real time all the time. Like, how can I touch what I've fell in love with over the past 5 years or 10 years or since I was a youngin? Like, how can I see that in person?
I love that. I appreciate that, Marcus. That seems like that's a good take on that question. I'm intrigued to see what it'll look like. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I definitely think our next episode where we wanted to try to get hopefully a guest on here. Hopefully, I do think we should do that for after everything that's going on. I mean, the new fronts are next week. Like I
Yeah.
said, C2 Montreal will be another one I'm going to go to in May. There'll be probably many other things that on your side of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
We, I definitely, we got some messages out to a few people. We're trying to, reach out every time we put that. We got to put it out there to get these people
right.
coming. But I think yes, our next episode for those who are joining today, we are going to have a guest, and we're excited. We're going to announce super early so a lot of people can join and be a part of that, and also take questions ahead of time. But
Yeah.
as we work through it, be patient with us. Evolution of engagement. It's about the people. It's about the community. It's about the community around experiential. And again, like if you see someone that's here in the audience that you want to connect with, don't hesitate to reach out. We all are involved in the space of experiential, from fabrication to the brand ambassador side, to the data side, to design, creative, as well as agency and brand. So all of us work together in this unique web to
Always.
execute experiences for for consumers. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, this was a great one this morning, Marcus. It was good to like just do a good chat and connect, and appreciate everyone for joining and commenting. And it'll be great to get the next one cooking for May, and we'll see what's happening in the world of experiential and brand partnerships, as we always do.
Love it. I appreciate it. Well, thank you all for joining. Joe, shout out to you. And happy Friday, and everyone have a good weekend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Peace.